I was today years old when I found out that different countries have different numbers that start their phone numbers. I don't know why I just assume everyone had to dial 1 first and then the number. First of all, Europe, I have a lot of questions. Why? This doesn't seem to match any sort of like geographical pattern. I'd understand if like Western Europe you had to dial 3 and Eastern Europe you had to dial 4. That doesn't seem to be the case though. And why did Romania get squeezed into it? Also in the US, we just have to dial 1. I'm now just realizing that you have to dial like 2 digits normally for any other country. So Romania would be a 40 and then the number. I love the 6th empire that has risen out of Oceania. Look how beautiful this is. I don't think I could have crafted a better like Australian/oceanic empire than this. Everything for the most part looks like it makes a lot of sense. I get why Thailand was included because, you know, they touched down here. They can't help that they blob up to Southeast Asia. Then there's the Empire of Eights, which for the most part, I understand. I just don't understand like 2 things. Bangladesh, why did they get included? And then why did Mongolia not get part of the Eights? There's probably a lot of like weird telephone history behind all this stuff. I didn't even know we could call North Korea, but that's exactly what I'm gonna do after this video. I think it's fair to say this map has a couple mysteries, but the biggest of which is why is Greenland a part of Africa and the Faroe Islands? Why did they get grouped up with this massive continent that they aren't even close to? I don't understand. Also, dialing 2 numbers seems like a lot, but I feel really bad for these Caribbean nations and a couple other smaller nations that have to dial 4. So you have to dial 4 numbers, then the area code, and then the 7 digits after that. Or is this like count as the area code since it's already pretty small? It's like a small island. Norway, but the green areas are where nobody lives. And if you know anything about Norway, these are just massive mountains. Why does Norway look like a Minecraft world? I understand the country we've decided to go with as Minecraft land is obviously the Netherlands, but Norway's kind of got to be a close second. I thought pretty much everyone lives like here and then around this area. That's about it. I don't even know why they keep this besides the aesthetic purposes. They like to have like a nice long tail or something, wrap up around Sweden, show their dominance. The Ottoman Empire in 1583, or pretty much at their height or very close to it. So many people like to bag on the Ottomans, but back in these days, yo, they slapped. They were pretty much just pushing around everyone. Look at all these vassal states. Kind of surprised they never ended up taking chunks out of the Italian peninsula or the Iberian peninsula. I actually didn't even know that they reached down all the way to modern day Ethiopia. They really had like their very own little Rome here for a second, or I mean, I guess Byzantium would be a better example. Obviously, a lot of countries in Eastern Europe was going to help stop this, as well as big bad Russia. They were going to grow. They were going to start to get very thick themselves. And then for the next like 400 years, the Ottomans would just slowly lose all of this. Like kind of a sad, depressing, not satisfying ending. It's like this didn't end overnight. This is actually a great video of the history of Turkey to really see just how strange and wacky the borders got. And you can kind of see their rise to fame. I like that, you know, some of that stuff in Africa never connected until later on. This is actually what we saw, but this was not their territorial peak. They peaked in the 1600s. What the hell? I forgot about this. I forgot this strange colony in Indonesia they had going on. And then the small little spots they were getting in southern Somalia around Africa. Oh, but they lost all that. Well, obviously they lost everything. An example of exploration by non-Europeans. So here's some of the insane routes that this one guy did. To think that he was able to accomplish this between 1325 and 1353, I know that seems like a long time, but you know, in those days, that was quick to get around the earth this much. Also kind of a miracle he didn't catch anything or just get oofed in general. So his first trip was the Red Line. He went all the way over towards modern day Iran and then up to modern day Turkey. Then he does this green trip exploring more of the Arabian Peninsula and going all the way down to ClBlr, making his circle journey back up. Third journey back to Turkey, goes north of the Black Sea, up around Central Asia, around India, and then does a huge mission to Beijing, China. These dashed lines represent a route that he might have taken. I don't know if he did this on the way back, but he had visited Singapore at one time too. I love the loops he was just doing around this part of the world. Must have really enjoyed that spot. That took him 14 years to complete. These other missions only took like 2 to 4. I guess for his final vacation spot, he decided, hey, I'm gonna explore more of Africa, going through the Sahara Desert, coming here. All right, seen everything, do his little loop, and comes on back. I like how his breaks between journeys lasted only a couple years, or maybe even a couple of months. After being gone for 14 years, I don't think I'd want to leave my room ever again. But then again, that's just me normally. I've never been anywhere. US state with the highest percentage of population of ancestry from European countries. Assuming they were able to get this information from like some DNA website. At first, I was a little taken back by seeing Maine over here for France, but that's right along the Quebec border, and that kind of explained everything. French Canada probably had an impact there. I always knew there was a lot of Germans in North Dakota. This explains everything, but there also seems to be a lot of Norwegians as well. Could it be because they ran out of space to live? Norway doesn't actually have a lot of space to live. Kind of shocked about the Utah in the UK. Out of all of the states, Utah? I expected nothing else from Ireland. That is right. I went to the East Coast for the first time about a year ago, and the first thing I noticed is how many like Russians there were. I don't ever just run into Russians or Eastern Europeans in general. I was actually like really cool, so I kind of understand how this could be like this. Even Alaska representing here, oh yeah. Basically the Rust Belt, Minnesota, Michigan, that is our Scandinavia. A lot of similarities, so this is kind of understandable. Here's a similar map with Canadian provinces. Canada has significantly less subdivisions though, so it's not as hectic of a map. Is it Yukon that's the least populated Canadian province? I thought like 3 people live there. Not 3, but pretty close. Almost 27,000. It is the least populated territory inside of Canada with only 0.1% of the population's percentage. This is surprisingly one of those posts that makes me feel less like a weirdo, which is pretty rare, honestly. Somebody posted their great-grandpa's drawing at the age of 12, and this map is from 1910, if you couldn't tell by the big old British India right here in the center. But it makes me feel less weird because, again, I thought that I was the only one that did this, and I thought that I was making everybody else kind of do this, because I see, you know, people's map drawings be sent to me, like, on a daily basis. So this has just been a fascination, I guess, from humans in general for a long time, which makes a lot of sense. I feel like the first explorers just wanted to finish their drawing. Ah, damn, I gotta take a 5-year journey across the globe, because I gotta finish this shit. The Philippines is the most impressive, because that is so hard to draw the Philippines. So many little islands in there, that's what I would have done too. I kind of wonder if Americans just kind of knew maps better back then. Obviously, we had 2 WWs that were going on, people being sent around the world to fight. I have this theory that they just kind of stopped showing us maps from like the 1970s onward. I mean, because honestly, that's the only way to explain this map. This is Americans trying to point to Iran on a map. This kind of keeps me up at night. Gotta show this one off for the GeoGuessr homies. Keep this in mind whenever you're playing. This is Google Street View of Europe. This explains why you're usually like only in certain spots of Germany, and apparently never in Belarus. There's like very little of Belarus that's tracked. I think Google needs to start sending people into the mountains just with a backpack. I want to know the street view of this barren wasteland. Which country has the larger trading partner, either the US or China? So we're starting off in 1996. This is the rise of China. We should see a lot of these places slowly grow a little red. I don't know what happened to the quality here. Wow, look at that. Boom. Russia, Central Asia, most of Africa, most of Oceania. This is crazy. A lot of Europe. They're even reaching, it's 2013. Nice. Let's go, Chad. Let's go, Chad. India's still pretty mixed. India's currently purple. We've already lost Eastern Europe. It's not the first time we've said that. Even in South America, our neighboring continent, this is a good post. I like this one. Europeans employed in science and technology. This graph is showing that most of Southern Europe doesn't care about science and technology. Maybe they have better things to do. I don't know. Seems like be a field dominated really by Germany, the lowlands, and Nordic countries. I'm curious why Turkey is so low. When is Turkey gonna get up there? Here's an East German map in 1961, so during the Iron Curtain times, and I just think it's kind of cool to see like the USSR when they had all this stuff, but still broken down into like their subdivisions. Like there's all these independent countries, but to look at this whole massive place and to see their subdivisions, that's just new. You don't see that. Like I don't see why we would see that, but it's finally like getting an inside perspective at the time of what things look like. Is that Tanutuva? Oh yeah, they had it labeled. I didn't know it was that famous. Interesting also to see the German spelling of all these places. I actually would only really recognize like half of them if I saw them not on a map. Maybe not even half, maybe like a quarter. So I guess this is it's a science game. It's not a game, I don't know, where you draw an iceberg and then once it's done, it's gonna put it in water and show you how it would float. So an iceberg that looks like this would possibly float like that unless it was turned over, right? Yeah, if you flip it over completely, then it's gonna have a different vibe. Oh, there we go. Throw in a state, the state of Delaware, an iceberg would probably float something like this. See, that's incredibly misleading. You would think there'd be like maybe 1 or 2 icebergs, not it connected. No wonder mistakes were made on the Titanic. I'll probably never be allowed to be the captain of a ship now. Hours of daylight across the world. Currently we are in March. As we approach April, this part of the world is getting 24 hours of the sun. If you're in the southern hemisphere, you're getting 24 hours of darkness. Both kind of seem equally terrifying to me, honestly. And then depending on your latitude, you can see exactly how much sunlight you're getting depending depending on what city you're from. I've seen other people talk about this, but I'm always so amazed just how much higher Europe is than we are. Like Maine, which seems pretty high up there, is basically just France. Gets even more northern than that. Elevation and sea depth profile from north to south pole. Let's see exactly where the deepest parts of the world are. I think it's down this way. It's got to be over here in the Pacific. We'll keep it in mind. So we have like the Himalayas. That's real high up over here as we approach as the line approaches it. As we get down this way, no more continental. It's all the ocean taking over when the southern hemisphere. See a couple of different little spikes. I don't see anything that's like really jarring yet though. Oh yeah, there is one. Oh yeah, that's getting real low. Negative 10,000, is that meters? I'm actually a little surprised to see like the bottom part of the globe to not be that deep at all. I kind of feel like it would though. Parking violations in San Jose for the year of 2020. Now this is 2020, people weren't even leaving their house and you still had this many parking violations? What was going on? I mean, in a way, this is probably just like where most foot traffic is going. This is probably not that interesting of a map if you think about it. If you were gonna park next to businesses or restaurants, maybe more entertainment places rather than like a workspace, right? Because they would have their own parking spot. Not all the time, but anyways, duly noted. Don't go to San Jose or else I'll get a parking ticket probably. Biggest oof disasters by each state. I guess one of the nice things looking at this map is that most of it is not from this millennia. It's almost entirely in the 1900s, sometimes a little bit of 1800s in there. So these could be blizzards, earthquakes, floods, heat waves. Obviously down here near the Gulf of Mexico, it's gonna be all hurricanes. It's easy to forget just how bad the San Francisco earthquake was in 1906. I remember having to study that in geology class. I'm a little surprised slightly that the only place affected by a tsunami is Hawaii. I mean, I know Hawaii would be affected by that, but none of the other coastal states? I mean, I'm sure they've been affected by tsunamis, but that probably just hasn't been their biggest thing. Michigan just had a straight up really bad fire in 1871. What happened? I've never heard about this. Hurricanes were by far the worst though. That's by far what's done the most damage, it looks like. College and university openings between the start of the country and now, I guess. Look at how many, it's just exploding right there. There was like no progress made, obviously in the very beginning. 1600s, okay, so what are these? The Ivy League schools, Harvard, Princeton in there. Boom, explosion in the 1800s. It goes across the whole globe. This only goes till 1970 though, right? 1979. The first school actually opened was Harvard, and then it was the College of William and Mary, St. John, Yale, University of Pennsylvania. I have never heard of that one. How have I never heard of that one? Delaware, Princeton, and then Washington Lee University in Columbia. I don't know why I like this stuff when like I dropped out of college and I didn't even like college, but I still find college fascinating. So this stuff is very important if you're into photography or cinematography, film, things like that. Light have different Kelvin, I believe is what this K stands for. So inside your house, if you have a tungsten light bulb or like yellow street lamps, this is very like 3000 Kelvin-ish range, somewhere around there. But during the daytime when there's no clouds and the sun's just beating down at you, yeah, I can get as high as 6,000, 6,500, something like that. This is really important stuff to set your white balance. I'm just saying. Nobody cares, I know, but I'm just saying. Where it is the hardest to afford a home? This is as of 2021 around in the entire world, I guess. Number one is Hong Kong. Do not buy a home in Hong Kong. Then Canada, Vancouver. I didn't know it was that bad. Then we've got the Australians coming up, Sydney, Auckland, Melbourne, and then finally the US. I just kind of assumed the US had the worst of the worst in these situations. San Francisco, San Jose, basically the Silicon Valley area. Yeah, there's like horror stories. People just living in their car. They don't want to pay $4,000 a month for like a studio apartment. Honolulu, Los Angeles, that's where I am. Problem is, I don't really want to buy a house in the middle of nowhere. I mean, that's probably what we should do, but it's hard. For any uncultured swine out here that doesn't believe it, yes, buttload is an actual thing. One buttload is equivalent to 477 liters. This is referring to English wine cask units. Basically like barrels, right? The big one is a ton, 252 gallons. Wow, that is massive. But second, it's the booty. It's pretty big out there. Damn, look at that dump truck, 126 gallons. Oh, this is actually a barrel. So I confuse the whole everything as a barrel, but in general, a barrel is just this unit of measurement, isn't it? The more you know. So be careful the next time you say you got a buttload of wine. It better be 126 gallons. Thanks to the February patrons. France doesn't exist. Rumel 57. I'm about a nut. The Glen Council. Thiccboi 3000. Stormtrooper 501. Ralsei Tree. AryanAfterHours. Pobsnitz. Polovsky. Patrick C. Manny 74. Mac. LuxembourgLover. FusionWolf. Full Send Nick. EpiNick. Elijah Senpai. Dalton D. Anikyte. And BallinLikeStalin.